Welcome to the future of this company. This is where we break the boundaries. What you see here will change the world forever.
My sister banned me from her baby shower because she thought I folded sweaters for a living. 3 hours later, while she was raising a glass with the executives she wanted to impress, Fortune magazine was photographing me inside the laboratory I owned, and one of those executives was about to discover that my sister had built her promotion on technology she had stolen from me. Hello. My name is Lena Cross, and for almost 4 years, my family believed I worked at a small electronics store inside Westbridge Mall in Northern Virginia. They were not completely wrong. Every Saturday, I wore a gray polo shirt, clipped on a plastic name tag, and helped customers choose chargers, headphones, and smart home devices. I cleaned fingerprints from display screens. I handled returns. I listened while impatient people explained problems they had caused themselves. What my family did not know was that I also owned the store, and the private laboratory 2 floors beneath it. The store was called Northline Devices. The laboratory was called Astor Vale Technologies. We designed adaptive sensor systems that could predict mechanical failures before they happened. Our newest device, a thin flexible strip called the lumen patch, could be attached to machines, hospital equipment, or delivery vehicles. It listened to tiny changes in vibration and heat, then warned people before something dangerous broke. It had taken me 7 years, nearly every dollar I had, and more sleepless nights than I could count. But to my older sister, Vanessa, I was still the woman who sold phone cases at the mall. Vanessa had always measured people by job titles, office views, and the weight of the names on their business cards. She was a vice president of strategic partnerships at Calder Systems, a large technology company outside Washington, D.C. She spoke in polished sentence, attended expensive charity dinners, and posted photographs of herself standing beside people whose names appeared in business magazines. When we were children, Vanessa was the star. She earned perfect grades, led student council, and knew exactly when adults were watching. I was quieter. I took apart radios and rebuilt broken kitchen appliances. Our father called me his little engineer. Our mother called my work a messy hobby. After our father died, Vanessa became even more determined to look successful. I became more determined to build something real. I never told her about Astor Vale. At first, secrecy was practical. My early investors required confidentiality. Later, it became protection. Whenever I shared an idea with Vanessa, she found a way to make it sound small. When I opened Northline Devices, she laughed and said, "At least you get an employee discount." I could have corrected her. Instead, I smiled and said, "The discount is excellent." The Saturday before her baby shower, I was in the stockroom testing a new handheld scanner when my phone vibrated. Vanessa had sent me a message. Small change of plans. It began. I opened it with one hand while holding a circuit board in the other. The shower has turned into more of a professional networking event. Calder's C-suite will be there, along with several important partners. I need the room to feel polished. Please don't come. My baby shower is for executives, not mall workers. I hope you understand. For a few seconds, I heard nothing except the soft buzz of the fluorescent lights. Then another message appeared. Mom will tell people you had to work. It will be less awkward for everyone. I read both messages twice. Vanessa was not asking me to skip the event. She was erasing me from it. I had already bought her gift a handmade walnut cradle modeled after one our father had built for us. Inside it, I had placed a small silver music box that played the song he used to hum when thunderstorms frightened us. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to remind her that I had paid the deposit for the shower venue when she said money was tight. I wanted to tell her that the mall worker, she was ashamed of employed 43 people and held 11 patents. Instead, I typed, "Understood. I hope the day is everything you deserve." She replied with a heart. That little red heart hurt more than the insult. I put my phone away and returned to the scanner. 10 minutes later, my chief operating officer, Marcus Reed, stepped into the stockroom. He had worked beside me since Astor Vale was nothing more than a rented garage and a folding table. "You look like you're trying not to break something," he said. I handed him the phone. He read the messages, lifted one eyebrow, and gave the phone back. "Are you going to tell her?" "No." "Are you going to the shower?" "Apparently not." Marcus leaned against a shelf. "That might be difficult." "Why?" "Because Fortune moved the photo session to tomorrow afternoon. The journalist and camera team arrive at 2. I stared at him. Vanessa's shower began at 1, in the glass ballroom of the Bellwether Hotel, directly across the street from Westbridge Mall. I almost laughed at the timing. The Fortune profile was supposed to remain confidential until publication. 2 months earlier, I had been selected as one of the magazine's Technology Innovators of the Year. The article focused on the lumen patch and on my unusual decision to keep a retail store above our research facility. The store was not a disguise. It was a living classroom. Customers told us what confused them, what failed them, and what technology companies ignored. Some of Astorvale's best ideas began with ordinary conversations beside a rack of charging cables. "Tomorrow is fine," I told Marcus. He studied my face. "You're sure?" "Very." What I did not know was that Vanessa's message was only the first betrayal. That evening, I returned to the laboratory to review security logs before the magazine visit. Astorvale occupied 20,000 square feet beneath the mall. Behind an unmarked freight elevator were clean rooms, testing chambers, a machine shop, and a glass-walled operations center. At 8:30, our cybersecurity director, Priya Shah, called me into her office. "We found something strange in the archive," she said. On her monitor was a record of failed login attempts from 6 months earlier. Someone had tried to access our Lumen patch design files using an expired guest credential. The credential belonged to Vanessa. My stomach tightened. 2 years before, I had invited her downstairs after our mother's birthday dinner. She had been going through a difficult divorce, and for once she seemed tired of pretending she had everything under control. I showed her only the public demonstration room. I made her sign a visitor agreement, just as every guest did. She had walked through the lab slowly, asking sharper questions than I expected. "So this is all yours," she had whispered. "Yes." For one brief moment, I thought I saw pride in her face. The next morning, she acted as if the visit had never happened. I assumed she was respecting my privacy. Now Priya opened another file. The login attempts came from a Calder Systems address. She said, "I blocked them, but I checked the old visitor activity. During your sister's tour, her badge entered the demonstration suite twice. She was with me the first time. The second time was 40 minutes later. I remembered that night. Vanessa had said she left her scarf downstairs. I had given her temporary access while I helped Mom into a car." Priya displayed a security image. Vanessa stood alone beside our demonstration table, holding her phone above an early Lumen patch prototype. She had photographed it. The room suddenly felt cold. "There's more," Priya said. "Calder filed a provisional patent application 4 months after that visit. The language is different, but the system architecture is extremely close to ours." She placed the two diagrams side by side. The resemblance was not accidental. I had spent years protecting my company from competitors. I had never imagined the person walking through the door would be my sister. "Who is listed as the inventor?" I asked. Priya hesitated. "Vanessa Cross." My first reaction was not anger. It was confusion. Vanessa was intelligent, but she was not an engineer. She could not have created the architecture shown in Calder's filing. Someone there had converted her photographs and notes into a working proposal. If Calder's leadership believed the idea was hers, she might have received her promotion because of it. The baby shower suddenly made sense. It was not really a baby shower. It was a victory party. Vanessa was using her unborn child, her title, and a room full of executives to secure her place inside the company, before anyone examined how she had risen so quickly. "Do we have enough to prove it?" I asked. "Enough to begin," Priya said. "But there is something else. Calder sent us a partnership request this afternoon. They want a private demonstration of the Lumen patch next week." "Who signed it?" "Their chief executive, Richard Halden." I knew the name. Halden had built Calder into a respected company, and he guarded its reputation fiercely. He was also on Vanessa's guest list. I looked at the security image again. My sister had not just insulted my job. She had used my trust as a ladder. "Preserve every record," I told Priya. "No one contacts Calder tonight." "What are you going to do?" I closed the file. "I'm going to let tomorrow happen exactly as Vanessa planned." The next morning, Mom called me at 9. "Vanessa says you have to work," she said carefully. That's what she decided to tell people. There was a pause. "Lena, please don't make this difficult. She is under a lot of pressure." "I didn't make anything difficult." "Then why do you sound angry?" I almost told her everything, but my mother had spent her life smoothing Vanessa's sharp edges and asking everyone else not to bleed on the furniture. "I have an important appointment today," I said, "at the store." I looked through my office window at technicians preparing the main laboratory. "Yes, Mom, at the store." At 11:30, a delivery driver arrived with the cradle. I had considered keeping it, but the gift was for the baby, not Vanessa. I attached a card. For the child to never have to earn a place in the family. I did not sign it, she would know. At 1, Vanessa's shower began across the street. At 1:15, Marcus handed me a tablet displaying public photographs from the event. Vanessa stood beneath a wall of white roses in a cream-colored dress. Beside her were Calder's chief executive, chief financial officer, general counsel, and several board members. A gold sign read, "Welcome, Nabal to settle," Marcus said. In another photo, Mom held the silver music box from my cradle. Her eyes were red. Then a short video appeared. Vanessa raised a glass of sparkling cider. To building a future, she said, for our children, for women in leadership, and for the people brave enough to turn bold ideas into reality. The room applauded. I watched the video once. Then I turned off the tablet. At 2 o'clock, Fortune's team entered the laboratory. The journalist, Camille Foster, shook my hand and said, "I've been looking forward to meeting the mall worker who reinvented predictive maintenance." I laughed. That headline may cause problems. Good headlines usually do. The photographer positioned me beside the transparent testing chamber. Behind me, a lumen patch monitored a turbine rotating at high speed. The system displayed small waves of color that changed as the machine warmed. Camille asked why I still worked retail shifts. Because executives usually hear reports, I said. Retail workers hear the truth. The photographer lowered his camera and smiled. Say that again. He captured the image just as the laboratory doors opened. Richard Halden walked in. He was followed by Calder's general counsel, a woman named Evelyn Brooks, and Vanessa. My sister stopped so suddenly that Evelyn nearly walked into her. Vanessa looked at the testing chamber, the camera crew, the Astor Vale logo, and finally at me. Her face lost every trace of color. "Lena," she whispered. I was still wearing the gray polo from Northline Devices. But instead of my plastic store badge, I wore a black access card that read Dr. Lena Cross, F.O. Undir ANKHF, X-Hafir. Richard glanced from Vanessa to me. "You know each other." "She's my sister," Vanessa said. Camille looked delighted. "This is the sister with the baby shower across the street." Vanessa stared at me. "How do you know about that?" "You posted it publicly," Camille said. Our photographer noticed the decorations from the loading entrance. Richard stepped forward and offered his hand. "Dr. Cross, I apologize for arriving without confirmation. Vanessa told us she had a personal relationship with your organization and could arrange a brief visit." That was the next shock. Vanessa had brought Calder's leadership to my laboratory as a surprise. She intended to present Astor Vale as a connection she controlled. Perhaps she believed I was only an employee who could be pressured into helping her. Perhaps she believed I worked upstairs and would never know they had come. Either way, she had miscalculated. "You're welcome to observe," I said. "But before we discuss a partnership, there is a legal matter we need to clarify." Vanessa's eyes widened. Evelyn Brooks became very still. "What kind of legal matter?" I nodded to Priya, who activated the wall display. The first image showed Vanessa inside our demonstration suite 2 years earlier. The second showed her photographing the prototype. Then came the access logs, the failed login attempts from Calder's network, and the 2 patent diagrams. No one spoke. Across the street, Vanessa's guests were probably cutting a lemon cake decorated with gold stars. Down here, the future she had built for herself was coming apart one document at a time. Richard turned toward her. "You told our research committee you developed the core concept during your graduate fellowship." Vanessa pressed one hand against her stomach. "I did develop it. Lena and I discussed ideas all the time growing up. She borrowed as much from me as I borrowed from her. That lie hurt, but it also freed me. Until that moment, part of me had hoped she would apologize. Instead, she tried to steal my childhood too." "Vanessa," I said, "you did not know this laboratory existed until 2 years ago." She looked at Richard. "She's jealous because I'm the one people respect." The Fortune photographer slowly lowered his camera. Camille did not write anything. She understood that this was no longer part of the profile. I appreciated that. Evelyn stepped closer to the display. "Dr. Cross, may we receive copies of these records through counsel?" "Yes, my attorneys prepared a notice this morning." Vanessa turned to me. "You planned this?" "No. You planned it when you took those photographs." Her expression changed from fear to anger. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to me? Today of all days." I kept my voice calm. "You brought your executives into my laboratory during your own shower. You chose the day." Richard asked Vanessa to surrender her Calder badge. He did not fire her in front of us. He simply told her that she was being placed on immediate administrative leave pending an investigation. For Vanessa, that was worse. She had to walk back across the street with the entire C-suite and pretend nothing had happened. Before she left, she leaned close to me. "Mom will never forgive you," she whispered. "Maybe," I said, "but I will finally forgive myself for staying quiet." The doors closed behind her. I expected satisfaction. Instead, my hands began to shake. Marcus placed a glass of water beside me. "Justice rarely feels clean," he said. He was right. The Fortune interview continued, but I asked Camille not to mention Vanessa or the investigation. My achievement did not need her humiliation to make it meaningful. We finished the photographs in the retail store, where I helped an elderly customer connect a hearing device to her phone. Camille watched quietly. "You really do work here," she said. "Every Saturday." Why keep the title secret from your family? I considered the question. At first, I was afraid they would interfere. Later, I wanted to know whether they could respect me without a title. And did they? I looked across the street at the hotel. I got my answer. At 5:30, Mom arrived at the store. She was still wearing her blue party dress. In one hand, she held my silver music box. In the other, she held a printed copy of an online announcement Fortune had released early, Dr. Lena Kiraz Namichnaloga Nevator, OFTHER. She placed both items on the counter. Is this true? She asked. Yes. All of it? Yes. Her eyes moved around the store as if the shells had become part of a puzzle. Why didn't you tell me? I tried to tell you about my work for years. You changed the subject whenever Vanessa entered the room. That isn't fair. No, it wasn't. She looked down at the announcement. Your sister says you destroyed her career because she made one mistake. Taking protected designs was a choice. Lying to her company was another. Trying to access our files was another. Bringing executives here without permission was another. Which one mistake does she mean? Mom flinched. She's pregnant. Pregnancy does not turn theft into a misunderstanding. She could lose everything. She could have caused 43 people here to lose everything. That was the sentence my mother finally heard. This was not just a fight between sisters. Astorvale paid mortgages, medical ghost tuition, and groceries. Vanessa had gambled with lives she never bothered to see. Mom picked up the music box and wind it. Our father's song played softly between us. I should have asked more questions, she said. It was not a full apology, but it was the first honest thing she had offered me in years. Yes, I said. You should have. She began to cry. I did not rush around the counter to comfort her. I had spent too much of my life rescuing people from feelings caused by their own behavior. I let the silence remain until she was ready to speak. What happens now? She asked. Calder investigates. Our lawyers handle the patent issue. Vanessa takes responsibility for what she did. And the family. That depends on whether the family can learn the difference between peace and silence. Mom left the music box with me and went home. The investigation lasted 6 weeks. Calder's board discovered that Vanessa haps my prototype photographs to persuade an internal engineering group to develop a competing system. She had removed the names of 2 junior engineers from early reports and claimed their work as her own. She had also used the unfinished project to negotiate her promotion. Calder terminated her employment for misconduct. The company withdrew its patent application, issued a written acknowledgement of Astorvale's prior work, and agreed to a settlement. I insisted that part of the settlement fund a new internal program protecting her employees who reported stolen credit. The 2 engineers Vanessa had pushed aside were offered the choice to remain at Calder or interview with us. One stayed. The other, a gifted systems engineer named Talia Nagayan, joined Astorvale 3 months later. Vanessa blamed me publicly at first. She told relatives that I had trapped her. She said I had hidden my success just to embarrass her later. For years, those accusations would have pulled me into an endless defense. This time, I released one sentence through my attorney. Astorvale protects its employees, its inventions, and the truth. Then I stopped responding. The Fortune article appeared in the October issue. The opening photograph showed me in my gray store polo, standing between the retail floor and the secure elevator leading down to the lab. The headline read, The Momenlustenange BNHTH nice. The article explained how customer complaints inspired our engineering, how my father taught me to repair instead of discard, and how the lumen patch could reduce industrial accidents. It did not mention Vanessa. That omission became its own kind of justice. She had spent her life trying to become important enough to appear in a magazine. When my story finally appeared, she was not even a footnote. 3 months later, Vanessa gave birth to a healthy baby girl named Sophie. I did not visit the hospital. I sent flowers and a short note. Every child deserves love without conditions. My door will be open when respect can enter with you. 2 weeks passed. Then Vanessa came to the store. She wore no designer coat, no company badge, and no carefully practiced smile. She carried Sophie in a car seat and stood near the same display where I had once read her message. I almost turned around 6 times. She said, Why didn't you? She looked at her daughter. Because I don't want her to learn what I learned. Which part? That love has a ranking system. For the first time, Vanessa admitted that after Dad died, she became terrified of being ordinary. Titles made her feel safe. Important people made her feel visible. When she discovered my laboratory, she did not feel proud. She felt threatened. You had built something without asking anyone to admire you, she said. I hated that. She admitted taking the photographs. She admitted lying. She did not call it borrowing, confusion, or pressure. She called it theft. I'm not asking you to forget, she said. I'm asking if I can begin repairing what I broke. I looked at my niece sleeping beneath a pink blanket. Repair takes longer than breaking, I said. I know. And you don't get to decide when it's finished. I know that too. I let her into the staff room. That was not forgiveness. It was a first appointment with the truth. Vanessa began counseling. She sold her oversized townhouse, paid her legal obligations, and found work with a nonprofit that helped women return to employment after long career gaps. She started in an ordinary program role with no executive title. For once, she did not try to make it sound larger than it was. Our relationship did not become perfect. Real consequences do not disappear because someone cries sincerely. Some holidays remained uncomfortable. Some questions remained unanswered. I never again allowed Vanessa inside a secure area of Astor Vale. Trust, like technology, needs safeguards. But Sophie grew up knowing both of us. On her first birthday, Vanessa held a small party in a public park. There were no executives, no velvet ropes, and no gold sign about legacy. The guests included family, neighbors, 2 of Vanessa's new coworkers, and 3 employees from Northline Devices. When I arrived, Vanessa met me beside the picnic table. I saved you a seat, she said. What kind of seat? She understood the question. A family seat, she answered. No title required. I placed the walnut cradle's silver music box beside Sophie's cake. The melody began, and for a moment, I could almost hear our father humming with it. My company continued to grow. The Lumen Patch entered hospitals, factories, and public transportation systems across the country. Astor Vale opened a training fellowship for technicians who began in retail, repair shops, warehouses, and community colleges, people whose intelligence was often overlooked because their RA summaes lacked impressive names. Every new group started with one lesson. I would stand in the laboratory wearing my gray polo and tell them, never confuse someone's uniform with the size of their life. That sentence became our unofficial motto. And yes, I still worked at the store on Saturdays. Not because I needed to prove humility, not because I wanted to hide. I stayed because the store reminded me exactly why I built the laboratory below it. Innovation did not begin in the boardroom. It began when someone listened carefully to a problem other people considered too ordinary to matter. Vanessa once believed a room became important when executives entered it. I learned the opposite. A room becomes important when the truth enters, and no title in the world is powerful enough to make it leave.